To listen to the Democrats talk about the southern border with Mexico, there's not a problem there. In fact, what the Democrats would tell you is that it's a seasonal problem. The problem is the seasonal problem tends to happen in the spring or the late fall, but it's the summer season, it's hot, and they keep on coming. As immigration heats up, according to the Washington Post, Biden struggles for a clear plan. The huge increase in illegal border crossings that President Biden describes as seasonal is growing larger despite the summer heat. Americans rate his handling on immigration poorly, and the president himself worries that Republican attacks on the issue will resonate politically. When President Obama faced a similar situation, he toughened enforcement, detained families, and increased deportations. But under Biden, such measures have become anathema to Democrats who feel they were badly abused by President Trump. This leaves Biden in a vice, caught between the costly reality of a historic border influx and supporters who erupt in anger when his administration hints at tighter control. In other words, he's held captive by a left-wing base. Here's the New York Times. Biden faces new pressure on immigration. President Biden came under renewed pressure on immigration Friday as the authorities said the largest number of migrants in years arrived at the border with Mexico last month, and a federal judge in Texas raised legal questions about an Obama-era program that protects young immigrants from deportation. Border officials encountered migrants nearly 6,000 times a day last month for a total of 188,829. The largest monthly number in recent history, according to data released on Friday. The surge is happening at the height of the hottest summer months, when the flow of people seeking entry into the United States usually abates. Andrew Hannon of the U.S. District Court in Houston ruled that DACA was unlawful, raising new questions about the fate of nearly 600,000 immigrants, often referred to as dreamers, but in a partial victory, Hannon stopped ordering the program's termination. The ruling adds urgency to Democratic efforts to permanently legalize DACA recipients. Activists have already been pressuring Mr. Biden to make sure dreamers and other immigrants are given a path. Taken together, Friday's developments underscore the difficult and often politically fraught choices Biden is confronting on immigration. But wait, the Democrats, engaged in performance, now have a spin. Are you ready for this? From Sabrina Rodriguez, the immigration correspondent for Politico, we knew this was coming. It was only a matter of time. It is here now. Here, in the small Mayan indigenous village of Cucup, men and boys pack tightly and stand in the back of pickup trucks in the early morning, headed to the fields to check on the crops after a night of harsh rain. It's early June, and any strong storm had the potential to derail months of work tending to crops, mostly maize, which soon people will harvest to feed their families. And these days, everyone is on high alert after back-to-back hurricanes last year left their home province of Alta Verapaz among the most devastated in the region. As the men head for the fields, women and young girls, many dressed in bright-colored skirts and tops with hand-embroidered flowers and patterns, hold bowls of maize over their heads, gingerly walking between homes made of wooden sticks, straw, metal sheets, and concrete blocks. It's climate change. That's right. It's not just climate change acting alone. It's food insecurity. It's malnutrition. It's poverty. It all ties together. That's why they're coming. Climate change is the reason. Kamala Harris could have written this piece. Listen, I don't want to downplay changes in climate. The West right now is on fire. In fact, I read an article, I think it was in the New York Times last night, that the fire up in Oregon is so massive, it is altering weather patterns in the area, wind shifts, lightning, and the like. It's a big deal. Now, whether it's man-made or not, the climate clearly is changing, and the climate is changing in Central America. And the big issue, however, is that they're trying to minimize the crime problem. the civil society collapse. To the extent they want to talk about it, they say that too is climate change. Notice how, so we have this divide. Have you noticed this? Domestically in the United States, domestically, every problem is to blame on race. And internationally, every problem is to blame on climate. You have Bloomberg News praising the Chinese government for forcibly evicting people from their homes and forcing them to move to cities in the name of fighting climate change. You have the Politico's immigration correspondent telling people, well, the surge is because of climate change. No, actually, it's because these are third world hellholes run by despots, ruled by gangs of criminal thugs who are wantonly killing people after shaking them down in the streets. And that's why they're coming to this country. That has way more to do with law and order than climate. But, you know, Democrats, progressives never, ever recognize law and order as an issue. It actually legitimately is an issue in Central America. Armed gangs shaking people down. If they don't get their money the next day, they kill them. There was a story, I forget in what magazine it was last month, but there was a story, I think it was out of Guatemala, where a family had someone show up at the door and essentially say the next day you were going to pay them a large sum of money, or else that family packed up in the middle of the night and fled to the United States border because they knew they were going to get killed the next day because they didn't have the money. That's not climate change. That's a thug gang. But apparently progressives can't acknowledge law and order issues anywhere on planet Earth. And so instead they'll blame climate change. And that's not to minimize changes in the climate. Droughts, changed weather patterns, and the like. A lot of the country's experiencing it. In fact, we're having a rather mild summer here in the Southeast. In fact, I asked a meteorologist at my flagship station, WSP, is going to come on and talk to me about the changing weather patterns that we're experiencing in the country, and the drought out west, the more mild summer here in the Southeast, and the like. But what the left wants to do is take, again, the hedgehog, the one big idea, and explain everything. It's racism and systemic racism in this country, and it's climate change everywhere else. And law and order issues are actually climate change issues. And essentially you have a mythology that is unfalsifiable. And if you dare dispute it, you're the bad guy. Live not by lies. And yet that's where we are as an explanation for everything in this country right now. Now, why is that? It's because it's the best the Democrats have. They know in all of your elections, the party out of power tends to do real well. And they got to find a way to combat it. And the way they're trying to combat it is to essentially say it's all you people's fault. You're the racists and you're the people polluting and you must be stopped. And they're trying to do an us versus them divisive campaign the same way they accused Donald Trump. But the left is very good at dividing people up as well. They just never like to admit that that's what they're doing.